The last question that I have, it's another topic, but I'm very curious about your theory about it. We've been seeing problems with Muslim immigrants in Western Europe and certain cities, London, Brussels, Paris. What do you see about problems with Muslim immigrants? Because I did some research, and again, AI said it's fake, that Albert Pike was talking about the World War III and that it was going to be against the Muslims. What is your view of everything that's happening with the Muslims, stab attacks, grooming gangs? Is there a link with the underlying agenda? Because what's going on there, according to you?
Well, what they want is a civil war in these various countries, which will allow them to impose their fascist tyranny to stop the war, stop the civil war. And the more extreme stories appear in the newspapers and online about Muslim migrants and what they do, some of them do, the better for the cult because it makes the population furious and angry and frustrated about what they see as their culture being overridden and taken over. Now, I remember as a kid when I first heard about the British Empire and the other European empires too, and how they went into these countries all over the world and took them over and imposed their version of everything on the population. And I was appalled that anyone could do that. And in reverse now, we're seeing the same thing happening. We're seeing in cities across Europe and the United States, but Europe's a massive example, and Britain, of another culture taking over from the indigenous culture, or as indigenous as you want to go back anyway. And the question is why? And you can't get away when you research this from Israel, not Jewish people in general, although they are some of the most programmed people from cradle to grave you'll ever meet because of the way that they are programmed to believe what their leaders, don't have their best interests at heart, by the way, want them to believe. But what you are looking at, and if you do any research, you can uncover this. There are elements coming out of Israel, your Mossads and etc., that are behind this massive influx of migrants from the Middle East and elsewhere too into Europe and through the southern border into America for a long time. And so why? You really have to get into the mindset of some of these people. They are utterly insane. And I'm not using that as a metaphor, I'm using it literally. They believe, the most extreme of them, in this ludicrous, and I can show that it's ludicrous, Old Testament story of the emergence of the Jewish people and ancient Israel. And part of that is that they say that there have been two temples in Jerusalem, and the Messiah, it's not Jesus, it's the Jewish Messiah, will return only when certain things happen. They talk about the third temple on Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is now and has been for so long. And if you'd have said not that long ago that the plan is to demolish the mosque and replace it with a third Solomon's, quote, temple, then people will have said, you are mad, mate. It would be a bloodbath. But now look at it. Gaza is destroyed. The people of Gaza, the Palestinians of Gaza, are in a desperate state. The West Bank, the other area of Palestinians, is being basically deleted in terms of Palestinian occupation and replaced by Jewish settlers supported by the United States and Trump. And the IDF is now in control. So suddenly, demolishing the mosque and putting another one, a new Solomon's Temple in its place, becomes less crazy as a suggestion than it would have been before. And these people are so crazy and so welded to these ludicrous ancient stories that have no basis in reality, that they believe that before the temple can be built, they have to sacrifice red heifers that have never had a yoke on their back, etc., and never given birth, and loads of other criteria. And they have to sacrifice one of those and use mix it with certain things, and then that has to happen before the temple can be returned and the Messiah come. They've imported red heifers from Texas to Israel, and they've just sacrificed one. It had 2 black hairs on its back, which meant that it wasn't appropriate for the real ceremony, so they had to practice one relatively recently to play that out. And crucially, what they say must happen before the Messiah can come is that Edom must be destroyed. And Edom is the West. It is Europe. It is the United States and Canada, etc. And you listen to these stunningly extremist rabbis who are saying that Edom must be destroyed and that Islam is their means to do it. And then you start looking at people like George Soros of the Open Society Foundations and his son, who have put billions of dollars, billions, tens of billions of dollars into this Open Society Foundation. Open society equals open borders, to fund this surge of movement from the Middle East and other countries into Europe. And if you then look at how it started, it really got underway because of wars instigated by the United